Okay, I guess we'll get started and see if there's some more folks that join us along the way, and we'll go from there. So welcome, folks. There's Sherry. At least I can see her eyes. It reminds me of Mr. Magoo, doesn't it?
Hillary was here.
There we go. I thought it would be kind of funny if I'll wait. I'll tell you later. So welcome to Image City's virtual reception. We've done a few of these, and this is the first one we've done for one of our very own partners. And so glad that Betsy's out of the hospital and feeling better from a 5-week stint in the hospital.
It's done, but I don't hear anything.
Who is this?
Susan.
Well, we all can hear, so you'll have to
hear
figure out how to do that.
Volume.
Is the sound thing.
Well,
So-
I muted our microphone so that they won't hear us.
Yeah, we can hear you
Mute
just fine. Carl, mute her, would you? There we go.
Okay.
So what I want to mention to begin with is that we of course would like you all to come into Image City Photography Gallery if you haven't already, and check out the work there. It's always better in person than it is via Zoom or any video component. But if you can't get there, I suggest you go to our webpage, to our regular calendar, and you'll see a nice, I think it's about 15 minutes, isn't it, Carl? A video of that Carl made. Carl's been making these great videos and interviewing all the folks who are showing in the gallery. And there's a link on the webpage for this show that has a nice 13-minute interview of some folks who are here, and also some folks who weren't able to join us. So like Lisa Cook is not here and Dennis Adams is not here, but they are on that video. And they also promote Camera Rochester, which is a great idea. So anyway, what I'd like to do is to start off with a few other people, and we'll bring Betsy in after all those things, and as the featured photographer. But there are some people who are missing today, and I just want to mention their names. Laura Connect is in the gallery on the east front wall, and she is our visiting artist for this show. And her work looks great. She looks like she and Betsy went out shooting together. They're both abstract. She doesn't only do that, but she has some really great abstract stuff. Like I said, Lisa Cook and Dennis Adams are both in the gallery. They have been supporting us a lot from Camera Rochester, and we think that's great. Their Camera Rochester is going to have a wall show at the gallery in March, so hopefully you can come in and check that out. And there's another person, Stephanie Morrow. Stephanie's not here, I don't think, is she? She didn't send me a photo, so apparently she's not going to be here either. So let me first start with David Brach, because he's alphabetically the first person on my list. So let me just share a screen. And Dave, I'm sorry that this is not as big as it could be, because the file you sent was a little small. So let me just do this. Can you see it okay?
Yes.
I can see it quite well, thank you.
Okay. So this is an interest. I'm just going to lead this into David for you. David doesn't shoot birds. I should say that David never shot birds before. So all of his stuff has been kind of the stuff that I like to do too, architectural and those kinds of things. So I'll leave that, Dave, for you to come in and explain this.
Okay, this is thanks to the local pandemic, which I think everybody's familiar with. I had some time, and so I decided to take advantage of the time and try my hand at wildlife. And I've always made the excuse that birds can't find me, which is why I don't shoot them. And I finally learned that you have to go out and look for them yourself. So I was wandering around Iroquois Wildlife Management Area, and I was shooting egrets, some snowy egrets that were in a pond. And in comes this blue heron who decides to land on a tree and sit there for a while. And I, of course, was waiting for him to take off so I could get a bird in flight. And I waited, and I waited, and I waited. And then he wouldn't fly. He wouldn't go anywhere. He just sat there and waited. Herons are apparently very good at waiting. But then all of a sudden, he opened his wings, stretched his neck out, and just started looking like he was at an opera. He was clearly drying wings out and getting some sun and getting his body temperature up. but it just looked like he was out giving a concert to someone, and it was just so much fun. I thought I'd have a fraction of a second to take the picture, so I took it very quickly. And then I took another couple of pictures, and he stood in that position for probably about 15 or 20 minutes.
Really?
So he was just there, and it was what he was doing, and he was having a good time.
He was posing for you.
He was posing.
So are you going to do more bird things, more bird photos?
Yes, I've got quite a few more, but these are the ones that are closest to my heart. And I'll be doing a lot more of it in the future. I finally figured out that the problem of my shooting birds was me. So I've learned an awful lot in the process.
So I think Carl could probably tell you that there's a guy who makes a device you can put in your hot shoe, I think. Is that where it goes, Carl?
That's right. That's right.
And it's like a gun, so you can track birds really easily in flight.
Yeah. It's really cool.
I can probably use any crush I can get, so that'll be great.
Well, I'll leave it up to you and Carl to check that out, because I think you'd find it worthwhile.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Let me move on to a new person, well, at least new to us. Come on, there we go. I lost my mouse. Hang on, there we go. I don't know where my mouse is going. There we go. Sorry. There we go. Sorry about that. So lots of us have taken pictures of high falls. This, I thought, was one of the most different photographs that I've seen. Kevin Tubiolo is not a gallery display person. We tracked him down on Instagram, and thanks to COVID, he's looking for some place to show his work. So he came to Image City, which I was really happy about. But talk to us about this, Kevin, would you?
This photo was a sunrise that I shot. It was my first photo that I shot in 2017. It was, I knew the sun was going to rise over the falls if I was standing on the pedestrian bridge, and I wanted to capture it. But when I got there, the sky was really overcast, and I almost didn't stay. But I said, well, I'm here. Let me just go out there. I'll take a few shots and see what happens. Well, you stand on that bridge, and the wind blows across the bridge, and it was cold. It was really cold. My fingers got all stiff and frozen and everything. But I mean, I shot this photo, and I got it home, and I put it on the computer and looked at it, and I said, wow, I really, really like the way this is. It's coming along. So this has been one of my my top sellers when I show at festivals or art shows. This high fall shot has been something that people actually recognize when they go by my booth and they see it and they say, "Oh yeah, I remember you. I remember that I talked to you last year." So yeah, it was a fun photo to shoot, although it was really, really cold.
So Kevin, you're showing this at the gallery, but it's not framed. Is it behind acrylic?
Yes, it's behind acrylic. It's got a float frame on the back.
Right.
Yeah, and that's. I don't do many photos behind acrylic because they're pretty expensive, and usually the clientele that attends these shows, they're not usually going to spend that kind of money.
Right.
So I usually do one or two at a time. This is only the second I've ever done behind acrylic, and I really like it.
Well, it worked out really well, and again, folks, that the photo, the picture you're seeing on your screen, it doesn't do it justification. It's really a nice photo. Thanks, Kevin.
What I like about it is it has a muted color scheme. You're not distracted by an overly blue sky. And, you got a little bit of blue up there, but the gold in the sky and the sort of champagne color of the water, it's just beautiful. And the subtlety of the buildings. It's just really, really good stuff.
Thank you.
That's very nice.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, let me move on to we have some Camera Rochester people that sent some stuff in. I know that Al Mosier is here, so let's go to Al for a second. Very dramatic shot, Al. And this is not what you usually photograph, is it?
Oh, no, I've been doing quite a bit with high school dance
Okay,
last couple of years. I sort of stumbled into it. I'm not a I'm not a very extroverted photographer, so I have a hesitation about approaching people and taking portraits and things like that. But with the dance, I've gotten more comfortable, and it's worked out. I find I have a great time. I get to know the kids after they've been dancing for a couple of years, and I understand what they are capable of, and have a sort of develop an awareness of when they're likely to be doing something I really want to capture. This young lady is actually graduated last year from Aquinas, and she is one of my favorite dancers to take pictures of. She's very energetic. Some dancers are very reserved and sedate, and some explode.
Yeah.
She falls in the latter category.
and the light is perfect coming from above. It's really great, and you can see just a little shadow on the bottom because it gives it away. But you also the light around her arm is really nice.
Well, thank you.
Well captured. It's a nice job. So this was one of the winners from the last. Well, I don't know how are you doing the competitions in Camera Rochester now? Are they done online?
No, we're not quite. Everyone submits digital images a week in advance, and then a panel of 3 judges will review them and give their feedback and results afterwards. But it's all via email on the website.
Oh, okay. So you don't have like a meeting like this where all the Camera Rochester participants can get in and look at each other's work?
No, but it's not a bad idea.
Yeah, I can talk to Dennis and see him, get him to do that.
I mean, certainly, I have to comment that of all the people that are attending tonight, I know a number of you, and I must say I'm impressed with the being around all the luminaries of photography in the Rochester area. You guys are
Is
do
that
some
what
pretty
we
nice
are?
stuff. Yeah,
Well,
you know,
it's nice of you to say.
Al, your picture is just beautiful. The poetry of the dance is just incredible, and you've caught it. You've caught it. Her hand and her toe that she's standing on, it's just beautiful.
well, thank you. That's always the
And Al,
challenge.
not only,
That's what makes it fun is
Sorry.
that in that case, as often happens, the stage is lit by minimal lighting. So it's pretty much you have to catch it when you can because I can't ask them to do things for me. They're going through rehearsals and things, so I can't interfere.
So a question I've always had about this, is this a single shot or you do a burst image to get one and then you pick out the one that hits the spot you wanted?
I've tried burst a little bit, but it's amazing. Even if 10 frames a second, a lot happens in a tenth of a second. So I find that really my ability to anticipate and hit the shutter at the right moment is better than trying to just
Okay.
shotgun it.
I know one of the things I took a class on sports photography, and it must be similar to this. In sports photography, you have to anticipate when something's going to happen just by knowing the sport, and then you get yourself ready to take it before it happens.
Sure.
So yeah,
And you have to throw a little bit of luck in. I mean, I may take in the course of a couple hours 700 or 800 shots.
wow.
You know, half of them are thrown out instantly, and then we go from there.
So do you do these every
Al,
day?
one of the things I really appreciate is the way you've got a black background, which is the dancer. And I've done dance photography and theater photography, and backgrounds are often the killer because the background will detract from it. And I'm assuming that the background was naturally black, or did you do something with it?
I've done very little with the substance of the picture. There was some blue lights sneaking through the curtains a little bit, which I've taken out. But yes, this is pretty much as it was shot, other than trying to deal with a little bit of burning on the upper part of her body.
And you also capture, I try to do some ballet photography, but it turns out that if a finger is in the wrong position, they don't want the picture because everything's so classical. But the way you've captured her hand is just absolutely beautiful.
Well, thank you. Again, I can't take too much credit because it's sort of what it is what it is. But thank you. And that's the one thing I do enjoy about dance, especially modern dance, is that it's a lot about the form and the grace that you can see in their performances.
Al, do you do these at rehearsal or do you do these during the performance?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch all that.
Do you do these at rehearsal or do you do these at the actual performance?
Both. The rehearsals are better because I'm free to move around the auditorium and sort of get in closer than I would. During performances, I have to stay in the background, and I don't want to distract from the performance.
Very, very lovely.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Al. Another person
Thank
from
you.
Camera Rochester that sent me a picture, but I don't think she's here, is Lonnie Titus.
Yeah.
Lonnie, are you here? Well, it's too bad. I kind of wanted to know how she did this. But it said something about leaf, spiral and leaves, but I don't know how she did this photograph. Anyway, we can't ask her if she's not here. So let me move on to our featured photographer. That's Betsy. And I got to get these in the right order now. There we go. So Betsy, there's your first one. Why don't you talk about that? Or actually, why don't you talk about your experience as a abstract photographer altogether?
Where do I start? I once wanted to be an abstract painter and just, I guess I don't have the imagination to create something out of nothing, but I have an eye to be able to capture what's there. And I've had this fascination with texture. So I go around wherever I go, and it seems big cities and ghetto areas are the best place. This happens to be taken in Portland, Oregon, where my daughter lives, and so I would go out there often. You know, if she were at work and the kids were at the babysitter, sometimes I'd even take the kids with me and just explore city neighborhoods, but downtown areas. And what fascinated me about this one, and the reason there's two there, is people say, well, you just take a picture.
Betsy, unfortunately, we can't hear you that well.
Oh, is that any better?
You might have to get closer to your mic.
Pardon? I've always had trouble with my mic. Is this better or?
Yeah, that's better. That's better.
Closer is better. I don't do a lot of manipulation. I take what's there and I'll saturate the color or I'll alter the color a little bit, but I really try to stay with what I got. I crop in camera 98% of the time. So I'll take multiples of the same thing. And so I just included the one on the left to show you where I started and where it wound up. It's sort of I pre-visualize what it's going to look like. And I don't know if you can zoom in any, but you can see, to me, it looks like a collage. It's little bits of paper, like for instance, right around here. And then over to the left. Yeah, keep going. So that gray area down in the lower right-hand section.
Right-hand corner. Got it.
Over here, yeah. What this was is, not so much in Rochester, but in larger cities, they have poles up and people put up playbills and then they'll rip something off or the weather will get it. Somebody else will stick something up and then they'll paint over it. So this is just, essentially
These are paper tears here?
paper tears, yeah. Like found art. And I search for that kind of stuff whenever I'm in a big city.
All right. Let's look at another one. If I can find it. Here we go.
This one, this is an old one shot on film. The top one is actually what it looked like when I started. Down at Shumway by the river and down by the lake, the boats are often up in dry dock where they're getting ready to be repaired. And so the boat's been underwater and faded by the sun, faded by the water, and it's just it's, I noticed the shape, I noticed the texture, but it looks flat. So really all I've done with this is increase the saturation. I do that mostly with levels, and the contrast. Uh, but this
So if this was shot on film, you said,
was shot on film, so
and then how did you get it digitized? Did you have somebody scan the film?
yep. It was done well, I shot it in October of 2008, and I never did anything with it until about 2018, right? Where I did crop it. I cropped it square, so square from the left to the right. Well, I can't show you with my hand. And then I later decided I kind of liked all that texture on the right-hand side. So I never really did anything with it until 2020 when I blew it up for the show, where I printed it 20 by 30. So before that, it was like 6 inches by 6 inches or 8 inches by 8. And I'd always wanted to show it large, and finally did it. So 12 years after the fact, it finally came to fruition.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I have a whole series from that. This is the only one I've blown up large.
Right. And then this is an interesting thing. Explain this.
Not a photograph at all, but I wanted to include it in the show because one of the things that attracts me is light and shadow. And this piece was really created to show light and shadow. So Laura Connect, who is the other abstract photographer in this show, who's not here tonight, helped me with this in planning what shape, which size and shape I should make. I call them wings. What I took was I took gold foil poster board and I had it dry mounted to handmade paper, and that's what those are made of. And she and I worked with smaller pieces. We finally decided to use a 4x6 size, and then I scored them and folded them diagonally. And in order to have them all be, we had to measure, how much space between vertically and how much space between horizontally. And the white things that you see are beads that I bought at Michael's. The hard thing with this was in the assembly, once we figured it out, it wasn't that hard to connect the dots essentially. So there's, 5 rows across with 13 pieces in each one. Pretty much free form. The idea was, and neither in Image City nor at Bau Shalom was I able to do that, was to have a fan so that they would move more frequently. Now it's very subtle movement.
There's the dog. Excuse me.
Was shown at Bau Shalom in March. My show up there was from March until April, and then COVID hit, so I had no reception. I got to stay in through May. I was going to have a closing reception, and that got canceled. So nobody really got to see it. So I wanted to show it in Image City. And of course, the hanging, as many of you know, I was in the hospital, so I had to kind of direct traffic from the hospital. The person who hung it in Image City the person who hung it at Bau Shalom also hung it in Image City, but the lighting was different and the distance of the whole piece from the wall was different. So this is the intended appearance with the shadows off to either side because it essentially triples the size of the piece. In the city, we weren't able, well, I don't want to say we, I wasn't there, but we were stuck with the logistics of the gallery. It had to be hung from a pipe, and we weren't able to get the lights in the same position. So the lights fall below rather than way off to the side. So it has a very different appearance at Image City. But the whole thing was the movement of light and shadow. Like if you're at a sunset or a sunrise, the light can change instantly. So although it's not a photograph, to me it's just another way of working with light. The reflections, I'm big on reflections, and even on the underside of the little wings, it kind of reflects what's around it.
Hopefully you can get to Image City and check it out. We've hung it there. We didn't quite, I noticed when I saw this photograph that you sent that this is kind of like in a hallway, right? Because and I think that helped to dissipate the light to get the shadows the way you wanted them.
It's at the end of a hallway. It's
Right.
straight ahead.
So maybe you can get down to Image City, guys, and check it out.
I got there today, believe it or not. I got out of the hospital on Wednesday and I had a treatment this morning, and John Cosbos picked me up, and it wasn't yet. I'm under quarantine yet because I was exposed to COVID. So I wanted to go when nobody else is at the gallery. So anyway, I got to see it, and the partners hung the right pieces next to it. It worked. At first, I was kind of disappointed when it didn't come out looking like this, but once the other two pieces were hung with it at the gallery, it works really well.
Great.
You guys get to see it, and maybe I'll get a fan.
But let's move on a bit, and thank you for sharing all that with you. And I don't want you to tire yourself out. So
Come on.
let me try. Carl's around, right? Carl, you still here?
Oh, yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, let me bring up
It's not easy.
there you go, Carl. Talk about that.
Yeah, I wouldn't call this abstract. This is more detail. I like to take an establishing shot and then look for details in the scene. Of course, this is the Canandaigua Lady paddle boat down in Canandaigua Lake. And I was obviously there in the wintertime. You see the snow on it. And after I took the establishing shots and some of the angles and so forth, I started looking for detail that I like. I always like red, white, and blue. That for us Americans brings out some emotions of patriotism. So I like to see when I have red, white, and blue, and that really worked out well. The white snow even added to it. Not an abstract, but a close-up view of some of the detail. I kind of like that. Betsy has inspired me because a lot of times when I look at one of Betsy's photos, I try to figure out what it is. And it's very difficult a lot of times with Betsy's. I can't quite figure it out if it's the hull of a boat or the side of a dumpster sometimes. It does cause you to look deeper. So this is something where people would look at it and say, now, what is that? Okay, all right, that's a paddle wheel. Now, where is that paddle wheel from? What boat and so forth? So that was my purpose, was some detail and make people guess what it is.
I have to tell you, the snow threw me off. I didn't realize that's what it was till you told me. I thought somebody tacked carpet on those things.
It does look like white carpet. Looks like my 1975 apartment, huh?
That's right. All right, let's move on to Steve. Steve, you're here still. Talk to us about this, because I don't think anybody's ever seen a photo of that subject where they can photograph it.
Right. So I've been working with composites where I'm taking images and combining them. And the components or the elements are from all kinds of photographs that I've taken, some of which are specific for doing this, and some of which are just pictures I've taken. And the fun part is going through pictures and finding things that go together. And at the end of the day, coming up with something that's, what's the term? The sum is greater than the parts. The components of this include a tablecloth at the Strong Museum, some fish actually that I saw in China, and a detail from a painting that's from Amsterdam, Holland. And just sort of sat down and started to put things together, looked at the drapery and said, gee, that almost looks like looks like water. So I said, maybe I'll put a boat on it. And then I said, maybe I'll put a fish on it. And then I kept replicating the fish and sort of giving it some movement from the upper right to the lower left. So obviously you're never going to see something like this, but it's sort of fun to put together.
So Steve, did you get my text message when I finally figured out what this kind of photography is called?
Yes.
Okay, so I believe
I
they
do.
call this conceptual photography.
Conceptual photography is like a major class. So almost anything, I mean, Betsy stuff you could say is conceptual, Carl stuff you can say is conceptual. So I just look at it as just a composite, and you know, really the purpose is not to put names on things, but to look at things and enjoy them. So, you know, the old saying, call me anything you want, but don't call me late.
Thanks, Steve. We appreciate that. Luann, you here still? Oh,
Yes, I'm
Luann.
here. I'm here.
Okay, let me pop this picture up of yours. I can find it. I've got it up here. There it is. There we go.
Okay, as maybe a lot of you know, I'm very interested in impressionistic photography and camera movement. And this is two pictures that I put together in layers. I was practicing making circles with my camera because I saw a photographer who did that and I just loved it. So that's what the background is. And then the foreground are some trees from Durand Eastman Park that I just put on top of the background layer and played with the opacity of both of the images to come out with this image, which I just really love. I love the color of it. I love the, like I call it, the whispers in the woods. You know, it just speaks to me.
This is the first one I've seen you do that you've put together like a double exposure kind of a thing.
I've done other ones like this, but I do in-camera double exposure too, which comes out really nice. And that's what's in the gallery along with this photograph.
This is really nice.
Thank you.
Very, very nice, Luann.
Thank you.
I mean, the softness of the background and the golds and the swirls in contrast with the dark to the trees.
It's amazing what happens when you put two images together and then you use the eraser tool in Photoshop and you can pick things out like the orange and the tree trunks and all that. It's just so fun to play with.
Clever.
Thank you.
Interesting.
And during this time of COVID, this is really a great thing to do if you're stuck in your house for day upon day upon day. And also it's a great thing to do in the winter time because I personally have trouble going out when it's 30 degrees and snowing out and taking pictures.
You don't like that, huh, Steve?
It's great fun to play with your images. It's like taking a color picture and making it black and white and see the effect that you got. You'd be surprised. And marrying pictures together is just a lot of fun in Photoshop.
Yeah. And I've been pulling out some stuff that was taken years ago. I still have the original raw images, and I've learned some different processing styles. So it's fun to pull up some of those older images and see what it looks like if you process it differently than you did before.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I'll go last. Here's one that I have in the show right now. And this one, those who've been around me a while know that I've got a 9mm lens on a full frame camera. And that's what this was taken with. It's at Monroe County Office Building. But the grading that you see on the right side and the left side are actually the back side of a vertical railing that I'm leaning over and shooting down. So you can see down 2 floors to the first floor. There's a couple people down there at the bottom, which I didn't see when I took it, but I'm glad they're there. So this was kind of fun.
Don, I love the dynamic, I love the dynamic look of this, where it pulls you right in, and you have to think for a minute about the, as you said, the railing, but it's just such a cool composition.
Thank you. I like the big V in the front, which kind of frames and forces you down to the bottom. But you begin, like you say, Steve, you begin to think about, where am I and why does it look like this? So sometimes if you use equipment that sees things differently than your eye actually sees them, other than being zooming in and zooming out, being close and being further away. This is 9mm without being distorted with like a fisheye. It's not a fisheye lens at all. It's rectilinear. So it has a fun
For architectural stuff.
project. I'm sorry.
It works really well on architectural stuff.
Yeah, it does. It does.
And the
Yeah, you,
layer,
have to, you use a lens like that in really tight spaces, or someplace where you can put it where that you couldn't actually do it with another type lens. This company called Laowa, Laowa, also makes a 24mm probe lens, they call it. It's 18 inches long, and it's about as big around as a silver dollar. And it's the lens is at the very end of it, and you can do some really cool things with it. So anyway, let me just get rid of this.
Don, I think it's great. I think it's great that you didn't have your feet in the picture, which is one of the problems with that.
Well, if I had my feet in that picture, I think I would be on the ground down there. That's where you would see me. Well, folks, I appreciate you all coming. And of course, the goal for us for Image City is to survive COVID and have our receptions again, our actual receptions again. But this is the way we have to do it for now. But I hope we're safe to come into. There aren't that many people in the gallery at any one time. We take very good care of it, and we're keeping it ultra clean. So I hope that you can come in and enjoy these photographs that you've seen here, actually at the gallery.
and I just want to say thank you, Don. You're doing a fabulous job of holding us together.
Oh, thanks.
And thank all the partners for keeping Image City going.
Thank you. We're trying. We're gonna survive this one way or another. We haven't stayed in business for 15 years to give up now.
Hey, Don, are you going to send Karen around to our houses to bring the reception food?
I was thinking about that, but yeah, no.
I heard the doorbell ring a minute ago. I thought maybe that was Karen delivering something. No.
Yeah, we could figure out a way somehow to share food and drink via virtual. It would be interesting, to say the least. Anybody have any questions they'd like to ask before we leave?
Well, I'm going to jump in with an odd question. That 9mm lens intrigues the heck out of me. Anything available in a Canon mount?
Yeah, actually.
Yes.
And it's not that as expensive a lens as you would think. If you go to their webpage, LAOWA or B&H, and look for that,
Okay.
they make a version for a crop sensor. I think John has the version for a crop sensor, and mine's a version for the full frame. The difference is the crop sensor one costs half as much as the full frame one. I don't know why, but yeah. So it's a true 9mm. On John's camera, it's like 18, or not 18, it's what, 12, 14, something like that. But Sheridan has one too.
Yeah, the other feature in their ability to design it that way is the Z7 has a completely different optical design than other cameras. And I think it's to be able to get it as rectilinear as it is at 9mm, that lens design is kind of critical to what they can do with it.
Actually, you're right.
John, you're muted. John Solberg, you're muted. You're muted.
Yeah, but he's not saying anything. Are you saying
He
something, John?
was, he was talking, yeah.
So
It was very interesting, John. I read lips. So, it was great.
before we leave, I don't know, let me just unshare my background for a second. So, because you can't put something in front of you, it doesn't show. There. So this is the lens. It's not very big. And the end, because the end has kind of a bubble on it. It has a lens hood that covers the whole thing, and actually the pedal lens thing around the edges works well, because there's no way you could put one on otherwise.
Sure. So, and it would fit right in a Christmas stocking, I think.
Very nicely. But I'm not your Santa Claus. You're going to have to find another one.
Yeah, okay.
Hey, folks, thanks a lot for coming. We appreciate
Oh,
that.
there's John.
Thanks, John's.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
See you later. Thanks, John.
Thank you, everybody.
See you guys. Thanks for showing up.
Bye.
Appreciate it.